I guess we're ready. I'm going to call the Cross Lake City Council joint with the Public Works Department of May 3rd, 4 p.m. to order, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Viersba.
Okay, we'll call the Public Works Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from our April 5th meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion to approve in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to move number 5 up to item 4. Phil's got a proposal here for engineering services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you moving me up early in the agenda so I can get to another meeting. So I provided a proposal for services for the delayed 2021 road improvements at the request of staff on the heels of having our on-site road review recently. I'd like to walk you through the proposal quickly. Maybe you've read it, but I want to kind of give you a little background on what we're thinking. So I think we all realize that the 2021 delayed improvements were for, there's already been design done on the Wildwind Ranch plan set. So that was a full depth reclamation. Actually, it's a reconstruction because they're putting in a subcut and fabric as well. That was originally bid once and rejected, thought to be bid again, but then the project didn't go forward. So our view would be that that's kind of the path for Wildwind Ranch. There is very little, if any, engineering work related to that other than assembling it with the bid package, and then it's on the construction side of it. Rushmore Boulevard and Trail, that feasibility study work was completed. The plan was for full depth reclamation. We look at that, it'd be construction in 2022. Birch Narrows Road, again, feasibility study was completed. Full depth reclamation was recommendation. That would be constructed in 2022. Whitefish, Hilltop, Woodland, Cool Haven, those were in the feasibility study identified for overlay, mill and overlay. That was the road we actually sat out and talked about. There's some thought to considering a seal coat in lieu of or as an alternate to doing the mill and overlay, and that would be kind of a identify the worst areas, patch those areas, seal coat those areas. We did get some information from people who provided information at the improvement hearings that they thought a seal coat was more something they could live with. You're talking a cost difference between $50,000 for seal coat versus $350,000 for mill and overlay. Certainly they're not both the same in terms of life they're going to give you, but that's a little bit of the balance here, or trying to figure out is the benefit worth the cost. And then Harbor Lane, that feasibility study was done. That was recommended to be a full depth reclamation. I think we had identified that there really is no easement, but a prescribed, meaning the area where the city has maintained through the north-south segment of that. There's also, then we've heard from the improvement hearing, people want to consider a trail, whether as a body you're in favor of that or not. We didn't believe that got vetted one way or another, and there is coordination and cooperation with Ideal Township if you go that route as well. So in putting our proposal together, we made some assumptions, and they could change, but we're assuming in our proposal that we're doing survey work on Birch Narrows, Rushmore Boulevard and Trail, and on Harbor Lane. We aren't anticipating doing a lot of surveying on Whitefish. We think there's a couple areas. One area is the curve that was identified off of Hilltop that they'd like to try and see if they can create better visibility there. And then also there is one outlot to the lake, or one platted right away to the lake that drainage is a problem, that we thought we could look at doing a little bit of survey there to see if we can identify the property right away boundary, as well as if we can put a little bit of a pond or check in there. So just a minor amount of surveying on Whitefish. But the one I wanted to say is our proposal assumes that we have to do that. And we're not anticipating, if we did have to do the field collection, that we would go right of way to right of way and do boundary. What our purpose would be is more to do 10 feet beyond the existing pavement edge, because we think a lot of these improvements really are street pavement benefited, and that's where the work will be. And then we would like to look for opportunities within 10 feet of the road to see if we can do a little bit of drainage work, if it made sense to shed some of the water into a good spot, because I think that's how we can assure your pavement will last longer, if we can find ways to get water off the road. We don't think it'll happen everywhere. We think there's situations where the banks are high, where there's trees or improvements that are close. But again, our point is if we survey, we're going to survey just beyond the blacktop. We've assumed that cost in here. I feel like in reading the feasibility report that was prepared by Woodseth, and in looking at some of the stuff, that there was a certain degree of surveying that was completed out there. If that information is available, if the city already has paid for that, and that's something that could help reduce our costs to the city, if that's information they could transfer or share with us. So again, I think we're giving you the assumption that we're doing it all. Talking about this, the other thing I guess I'd say when we say preliminary engineering, we're also anticipating we're going to set up this input ID, which is the web-based on your own platform where people can give their 2 cents about it without having to attend a meeting. We'd set that up and we'd work with city staff to notice everyone that that's available. That we'd also hold the public information meeting. We're thinking that that could happen. And in June, July, we would have the improvement hearing again in August. That's the point where the city would say, let's get proceeding with wrapping up these plans. Our goal is to have the plans completed by December of this year. We want to bid it in January, February. We believe there's better competition at that point, and then construct it during the summer of 2022. So in particular, as I said, Wildwood Ranch, our approach there is that plan is done. The uncertainty or concern that we have is that plan was developed without any geotechnical information. Now, from our experience doing a full depth reclamation or doing a subgrade and a reconstruct, I would want to know what the soils are like. I don't think you have to go to an exorbitant expense, but we think that if you did 3 borings, 5-foot depth, so just shallow borings, that would establish blacktop, that would establish your materials below the surface. If you've looked at the plan that was put together, and it might be just a perfect plan, but it shows that 1/2 of the road is going to be cut out to a depth of 1 foot, and they'll put back fabric and material, granular material, and pave over it. The other side is just going to be chewed up, and that's going to get paved over. I get a little concerned that only half of the road, the entire length, is bad material, and the rest of the road, and the other half, is good material. I think that it's a really small insurance payment you could make to make sure that that entire road is not going to have problems. Because I think you want, if there are problems on that side that isn't set up for a subcut right now, you want to know that now before you bid it, so you're not standing out on a road negotiating with a contractor to get this additional work done. So we just think a few borings in that particular road would make some sense. If it is no issues, your plans are great. If there are issues, we would take the plans and probably just redline them so that the contractor was taking care of the whole problem, not just part of the problem. With Rushmore Boulevard and Trail, again, we think that we need to have a few borings there because you're planning to do a full depth reclamation. But if we do borings and we determine there's an appropriate amount of gravel and we determine that there's an appropriate amount of blacktop, we might be able to do, and I really think there is an opportunity to just patch and overlay that versus doing a full depth reclamation. So again, why does that matter? If you remember from the on-site road meeting we had, overlay, mill and overlay, we're talking $50. I think we were looking at $50 a street foot. When you're looking at the full depth reclamation, you're closer to $100 a street foot. So, you know, if we have a good existing structure there, then it might make more sense to mill and overlay, or just overlay that versus a full depth reclamation. Again, we would look for opportunities to take care of any drainage. We would work with getting that approach onto the county road flatter and addressing, the other items there. Our approach with Birch Narrows, Birch Narrows is the same as Rushmore. I want to get a couple, 3 borings that are shallow. Want to make sure that what's there is full depth reclamation, or if it's got good aggregate structure, which we don't know if it does. We think it might not. And if it has some pavement, we might again be able to patch and do a mill and overlay and get a lot of life out of the road and save dollars on the project. Whitefish Avenue, again, we want to survey a couple areas, and we're thinking that it's either, we think it can be seal coat and last a number of years yet, and you can mill and overlay that later. That would be a city decision. It's kind of a savings now for some life. You could mill and overlay it, and you're going to pay more, but you're going to have more life on it. So again, our goal is to work in that drainage area the outlot to the lake and also to the curve. And then Harbor Lane, we just feel like that's more of a planning level at this point. We don't see that as construction coming up for a couple of years. We'd like to work through the existing alignment, work with the property owners on what's there and see if we can get an easement for the city and have the discussions about the trail and about drainage and see if that is something that's worthwhile proceeding. So again, it's kind of a hodgepodge way to do it, but that's how we think this really is the best way to approach the questions, the cost and uncertainty with some of these elements. So we have geotechnical in there for 3,000. The surveying's 22,150. Again, I think that could go down if there's information that can be shared that was already paid for by the city. And then the engineering is 33,650. And that would be to get to a final plan by the end of December. And I'm kind of thinking it's going to be, when I look at this, I think the Birch Narrows, the Wild Wind, the Rushmore are going to be ready to go. I think Whitefish is something that you'll tack on with the county and use their program because it's, economy of scale, you get in the best cost. And then Harbor Lane will come through the process and hopefully get to a point where you're ready to put the dollars into an easement for a road that you have. And our plan would be to begin as soon as we were given approval to go. With the schedule to be to do a project update immediately, set up that input ID and get meetings set up for June, have the improvement hearing in August, plans in December, bid in January, construct in summer of 2022.
The public hearings would be when?
August.
And we're going to have an assessment policy in place by then?
You have assessment policy in place right
I mean, a definite one. So what I'm saying is that every property owner would know what their assessment would be. That's not your problem, that's our problem.
No, I know, but in your feasibility study that laid that out, and that's a good point. What we're assuming too is because the appraisals are December 2019 and in 2020, we think they're still valid. If others differed in that, then we would get a cost for NAGL to update those, but we think they're recent enough to be able to use that information if we are moving forward yet this year to have improvement hearings. If we're going to wait longer, then we may run out of that being valid. Great.
I got a question. When would city council need cost estimates to put in the budget? Or when would Ted need numbers to put in the budget for next year? You're doing a lot of maintenance, like Whitefish area, that's all maintenance. I think that has to get in the budget because that's going to be more than normal probably for.
I think what we do is through this process of the engineering and survey, we'd identify those areas and come up with the costs. So we'd have that for the 22 budget.
You need that by about when?
Which is August, is coming in August. So
About
that's why
August or so?
key that we
Yeah.
work with them and get it done in a timely fashion.
Just so Phil knows that you might need some numbers.
Yes.
Okay. Other than that, I think the proposal's good. I don't see any issues. You're checking out that subgrade, which I think is important to know what we got before a contractor gets in there. questions?
All the core samples have been done on all these roads and stuff? You've, has there been any done? None.
I think you said have any of the soil borings or the geotechnical work been done on these? To my knowledge, no. And actually for Wildwind Ranch, the report does state that they didn't do geotechnical borings. They reviewed the county soil index to see what it was for soils in the various parts of the city. We're recommending you actually just go get the borings done.
Okay, and you're taking all that into consideration with this
Right.
reports here?
Because the borings, I think, are going to tell us that we're heading in, what our options are. If we run into a situation where the borings show us there's an inch or less of blacktop and it's on sand, then it won't make any sense to mill and overlay or overlay. We will want to do full depth reclamation. We have to create the structure so we can build the pavement on it. If we run into situations where the borings show there actually is good aggregate structure and some blacktop there, then I think that might allow us an opportunity to do the overlay or the mill and overlay approach.
I have a question on Rushmore Boulevard and Trail. Are we putting a trail on Rushmore Boulevard?
No. Did I put trail in there? I think it's called Rushmore Boulevard and Rushmore Trail. I shortened it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I looked at it like, why are we putting a trail on? Okay, it's
should
Rushmore Trail.
I should pitch that before we have the meeting. I'm sure we could throw people off the trail.
There's that one leg that they call the trail and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a couple of questions for you, Phil. You want me to go up there and talk to Mike?
please, if you would.
On your surveying part of it, you said you're gonna go 10 foot each side of the blacktop, but the blacktop always doesn't run down the center of the, so you're just gonna deal with that as you go.
Correct, because we're not intending to move the road. We're just gonna try to get off each way to see if we have an opportunity to run water.
Okay, next, what do they typically overlay if you're gonna do an overlay? Inch and a half?
Inch and a half to 2 inch. We do a lot of 2 inch overlays.
What benefit is there to the city to go 2.5 inches? Here?
Yeah.
What benefit is there to go 2.5 inches or a thicker overlay? I mean,
I guess someone might, if there was just a little bit of pavement, say somebody had skim coated an inch on there, you might want to go thicker, but I don't know why you would go 2.5 inches. If my assumption is even with a lot of these developer driven roads, they try to put at least 2 inches. That would be kind of a standard, putting, I'm going to say 4 to 6 inches of class 5 because it's pretty sandy here in Cross Lake, and then 2 inches of bituminous. So having a 2.5 inch, that would give you 4.5 total. That would give you a lot of truck weight capacity, probably more than you need. So I don't know why you'd go 2.5. I don't know if you're trying to trick me with that question or what, so.
no. I'm not trying to trick you, but I've kind of got a feeling that some of the roads have only got an inch on them. Whitefish Avenue, where we were standing there. And if we did 2.5 over, then that might be all right. It might carry it. Your borings will tell you that answer.
Right.
On your proposal here, geotechnical, does that mean borings?
Yes,
And is that 3,000 for all the roads?
all of them.
Okay.
So we reached out to ITT and we scoped a dozen borings total to a depth of 5 feet. The idea being between the roads that were out there, I think we thought 3 was a good number to space out and do these 3 per road. None on Whitefish, Cool Haven, any of that spot. It would be Harbor, Birch Narrows, Rushmore, and Wildwind. So 3 times 4, 12, a dozen of them.
So I would just ask you, when you're doing the borings, look at the depth of the existing blacktop and see if 2.5 inches might work, might benefit it. You know, you'll just do that on the field work. On the survey, have you inquired to see how much survey work has been done on the roads? Have you looked into that? Or Ted, do you know?
What we're gonna do is we get this to go ahead on all of this, I'm making a formal request to WSN to get all surveys of these roads that are done, and anything we can get from them will then turn over to Phil.
Is there a way that we could go back and check our records to see what we paid for surveying on the roads?
I'm sure we could go through and see past projects and see what there was as far as survey
Well,
that
or
was
even
done.
on the current road projects up to last fall, we were moving them forward. And
Yeah.
did we pay for any survey on that?
Well, like Wildwood Ranch, they didn't do any geotechnical, they did some surveying. On other ones, nothing had been done, it was when they were coming to one of the last meetings they were here, they were bringing the proposal to do the surveying in the next go
Okay, that
around.
was the next phase.
That was the next phase, so that hadn't taken place yet.
Okay. Okay, I guess that's all I have.
So the only thing I'm uncertain about that, Ted, is when I look at what they wrote in the report, they wrote that the utilities, any utilities that were marked were surveyed.
What they told me they did is they called in for locates
Right.
and they identified that on the side of the road. Now, how they did that with
Okay.
what their survey entailed, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's what I gotta find out, so
Yeah.
that's what the information we gotta request.
Yeah, it just, even looking at the maps, I'm suspicious. Then again, that it looks like pavement is drawn out in segments. So, bottom line, I don't want to double ding you for a cost that you might already have, so.
Yeah, and that's why I said we request, if this is all finalized and this is the route plan we're gonna go, I'll request this information from WSN.
And to answer your question, we actually did request this information from WSN early on, but if you recall, you made the selection and change. We made the request in mid-February, but WSN did come back later and set up an agreement with the city for reimbursement on some of these things. So that might have been why we didn't get it, because that had to be agreed to in advance. So we are looking for that information so that we can hit the ground running.
I've got one more thing.
Yep.
We've got these roads here that we're talking about. Some of them have more usage, I guess, than other ones do. Are we taking that into account when we start talking about 1.5 to 3 inch overlay? Some getting 1 inch, some getting 3 inch? Because like
Yep.
where I live, it seems like there's awful big trucks going by all the time. Where in some of these smaller areas, it probably isn't that populated.
Yeah, that has to be part of the question. I think the question has to be, when you're trying to figure out what the right solution is what kind of capacity and use does this area get? And what's the right, when the borings are in front of us, that'll help us piece together where it should be. Now, you're really not gonna design anything, in my estimation, for heavier than a 10-ton road. And your 10-ton roads are like a county road. And even the county here is probably 68 inches of aggregate and 4 inches of blacktop total. And I don't know how many of those you actually have in the city, to be honest with you. I mean, if you were in more of I'm gonna call it a traditional lot and block city, where you start to develop the collectors and things like that, I think that jumps out at you. But it's harder to identify here. But for the comments that I've been receiving kind of anecdotally from people that live on Whitefish or know Whitefish, it sounds like Whitefish gets a lot of traffic, and there might be other areas within the city that kind of come to that level. Kind of seems to me, when I think about the traffic that rolls back and forth on, I think it's Daggett Pine that goes to community center. I suspect that gets a fair amount of traffic. Maybe not as you get further down, but in that first stretch, it might get a lot of traffic. And that's something I think that when the city's laying out how you're going forward with some of this stuff, I've even wondered, and asked Ted the question too, and he said, well, Whitefish is heavily traveled, but Rushmore Boulevard, it seems like it serves a limited area. and you're taking care of it. You know, is that the priority where your dollars should be going? Or is there other areas that get more travel that the dollars probably benefit more, you know? Again, those should be all the questions you're asking and you're laying this out. How much blacktop? Where's the target areas? Am I serving a lot or is there a reason?
Phil, like Manhattan Point Boulevard, I think they put down 2 layers of blacktop. You know,
Yes.
so about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, or 1.5 inches, something like that. Because that was considered more of a collector street, because all those Whitefish and all those other ones
Right.
come onto it. It's definitely got the most traffic in that neighborhood, because it's the only way in and out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other streets, like, you know, Rushmore's it's a dead end, it's like a cul-de-sac, you know, there's no through traffic, so.
Yeah, and bringing heavy trucks down there aside from maybe a bus, I don't know if a bus is that heavy, but garbage trucks and stuff, I mean, bringing a semi-trailer down there be silly, you know? Just asking for trouble.
One trip is not gonna do a lot of damage except for the spring
Right.
of the year.
Yeah.
And, you know, road restrictions.
I mean, one of the good things for the people, I think, of Cross Lake to understand is you live in a great area when you put dollars into your roads because of the materials that you're building on, you're gonna get the investment out of them. I work in Aiken. So your 10-ton road here is probably, like I said, 6 inches of aggregate, 3.5 inches of blacktop. That's probably close to a 10-ton. Might be on the skimp 9-ton, and you go to 4 inches of blacktop and you're at 10-ton. Doug knows this. These are engineering equations that you come up with the rate of equivalence. Your 9 or 10-ton road in Aiken is subcut fabric. It's 8 to 10 inches of gravel. It's 4 inches of blacktop, maybe more. I mean, you just really, from a standpoint of benefit, it's cost effective to build roads in Cross Lake because of your granular material versus other areas that, you know, have heavy soils that move with freeze thaw. So I don't know if that makes anyone else feel better, but I'll tell you, there could be worse places to build than here.
Yeah, there's very few streets that I see that would be considered collectors in the city, really. And there's a lot of little short, narrow streets, and 2 inches of blacktop would be plenty.
Yeah, it would be. And, you know, and even when you start doing one layer of over 2 inches, then you kind of run into some rideability issues. Sometimes the pavement mat pushes and you get a little bit of a roll in it. We used to do 2.5 inch Breezy Point when I was with another firm, and I think we had some of those things where you're just trying to push too much of a mat along, and it, you know.
I think I've heard there are issues with compaction too, of that blacktop. You get too thick, you can't compact it.
Yeah.
It stays hot longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I would argue that I'd just beef up my aggregate by another inch or so, and I'd put 2 inches of blacktop, and I should be good. So.
Mr. Chairman, I know Phil's got to leave here at 4:30, so.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions? Otherwise, it's more to explain to you what's in here. So
We need a motion to move this forward to the,
Yep.
Make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second to recommend the council approve of the cost layout here for the engineering on the streets. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
was the motion Mick and who did the first and the second?
Nick made the motion, I second.
Mick was first.
Or, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, we're just trying to get it down for the papers.
thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, next item is number 4 on the agenda. Dad's got some capital expenses requests.
In my 2021 capital expenditures and request to purchase equipment, if you get down to the bottom of the page there, I'm looking at $65,000 out of the budget to go forward with this year. And what that includes is a Falcon 2-ton asphalt hot box recycler, a dozer blade for working with the shoulders, so that gets the angle and the swivel of the blade, a packer then to pack the shoulders. We're looking at renting a road widener, which is a shouldering machine. That's about $6,180. And then the gravel and dirt and miscellaneous to do the shouldering of these, and the patching of these roads. The other one that we have here is crack sealing this year. We budgeted $40,000 in our crack sealing. And after I took and went around and identified the areas that I felt, and it's about a quarter of the town that should be done this year, it came in at $72,000. So what I've asked the council is to give me an additional 32,000 to come up to that 72,000. Otherwise, striping is, we budgeted 16, it's gonna take about 25 to do everything this year. Chip sealing, that's being done under the county contract, so that's almost a wash. Cemetery, it looks like we're gonna use the 5,000 that we had budgeted there for that part-time employee to help us out, to help offset some of those costs. The only other thing is we sold 2 public works pieces of equipment, the dump truck and the pickup. We got 40,400 out of those 2. I guess what I'm asking for is the blessing of the commission to move forward with these purchases.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yep, I'm open to anything, Tom.
What are you cutting out of the public works facility? The 31.5?
This year, the county only had, we each of us had about 50-some thousand in the budget. And the county only could come up with 20,000 to spend there this year.
Okay.
So we're doing the lighting and the key fobs.
Okay.
Those are the 2 things that are getting done this year. Everything else is basically was put on hold and for further another year.
Okay, and then striping, did the price just go up or are we striping more? And
There's
how
some-
long does, I mean, are some of these roads striped every year or are we?
If you notice the ones like Manhattan where they did the chip sealing,
Uh-huh,
it doesn't hold up as long.
okay,
It's got to be striped more often. And some of them are to the point where you get back on the backside of Tamarack, it's almost gone. So we're not doing everything. We're doing about a little more than half of the community this year.
okay,
The other one I have to do is I have to add a little bit in for the hello pad and restriping everything behind
Yeah.
the hello pad.
I was just curious why it jumped, if we were doing more or if the price went up or what, but
There's a little more to do this year. The other thing is we did take on the town square and there is some things that have to be redone there or brightened back up.
yeah, okay. This is kind of a nitpicky one, but on the hot asphalt thing, there's $1,420 for freight to Cross Lake. I mean, you're gonna just pull that with a pickup or your 1-ton, aren't you?
Mhm.
I mean, it seems like you could send a man down with a pickup truck to Ham Lake for less than $1,400.
What they do is it's not just the shipping to Ham Lake, it's the shipping from their factory.
Okay, all right,
And then when they're here, they train the whole staff.
all right,
I asked the same question. And it's not just from Ham Lake to here, it's from the factory.
all right. I thought of another one. You were talking about renting a shouldering type machine.
What this is, it goes on the front of the Bobcat, the dump truck backs up to it and dumps into the hopper. It has a hydraulic apron off of the back of and lays it out into a preset width that you can adjust on the side of the unit.
Okay. And in the past, we've just used a dump truck and then we had a thing on the side that you just went down the road and laid a strip and then bladed it.
Yeah, and bladed it and tried to get it as level and as neat as you could, so.
Okay.
And it hasn't worked very well, but that's what we've done in the past. This is supposed to be an improvement.
Okay,
I haven't tried the unit. I've watched all the videos, talked to other people that use it. They said it works great.
So that'll lay down the shouldering and then you've got a blade that you can. use
Adjust anything
to-
you have to.
Then you put on the vibrator.
Yep.
Okay,
We're using the Bobcat as much as we can nowadays, and
yeah,
that was the big change in the budget this year is we were up for a new Bobcat this year. That's $65,000, the difference to trade in, and we didn't go forward with it because the Bobcat's still in good shape, so.
okay.
Ted, that trailer with the hot mix, whatever it's called,
Mhm.
35,000.
Yeah, 34,932.
Okay, now, don't take this wrong, but I'm gonna ask you, how many potholes do we have to repair? And where I'm going with this question is if you guys had all the potholes prepped, have you ever approached Anderson Brothers or somebody and said,
You asked me this question before, and what I said was, what we get is the mobilization from Anderson Brothers. When we've had them come to do potholes like this, they charge you from every manhole to every manhole. They do mobilization on it.
have you
It
tried
get-
to negotiate that at all?
Talk to them about it. They just pass that cost on. It's even when you do crack sealing, there's mobilization for them to bring their equipment up here. You pay mileage for them to bring it from Brainerd to here. It's not a negotiable, that's just part of their bidding
Well,
process.
except that they work in town here a lot. Because this is another piece of equipment that you're gonna have to store, maintain, clean out.
Well,
There's-
this piece of equipment is not just for summertime. Wintertime, we get a break or we get a hole that shows up in the pavement. This unit will heat the asphalt up to the 300 degrees, and we'll be able to go and put hot asphalt in these. And that's part of the problem, is we're taking cold mix and we're putting it into these
Yeah,
holes.
I know.
And
I know.
it just doesn't hold the hot mix that will, so.
Okay, I question that a little bit, but it's good.
I think that's where it's coming from. Yeah, I guess Dave reminded me of another question. The hot patch thing. Not sure how to ask it. What is the material? Do you buy it from Anderson Brothers and then just reheat it? Or does it come on pallets and then you mix it and make your own hot asphalt or?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay,
You can take and you could go down to Anderson when they've got their pit going in Breezy Point.
okay,
You can get 5 ton asphalt, you can bring it back.
okay,
You lay it down into basically a pile, and you go dig a chunk out of this pile and you put it into this machine in the dead of winter, and about an hour and a half, it's brought it up to 300 degrees. So you can go out and patch a hole. That's kind of the key, is getting it down when it's hot because of keeping the water out and getting it sealed, so.
Does anybody rent these things?
Some do. I have nobody around the area that I know about. I mean, the county's got
you'll
two
be
of 'em.
stockpiling asphalt down there and then does that harden and then does it just chunk off and you put it in there and then it,
The other thing you can do with this, Tom, is when I said yes and yes and yes, is we have a pile of millings. You can take and put the millings into the machine, and they got this bag of, basically it's the oils, and you throw this little puck into the oils, and you need, you're gonna do a ton of tar, you need 2 of these pucks for this ton of tar. And it'll take that recycled asphalt and turn it back into hot mix.
And how often would you have to use this machine?
Well, right now, we've been going about 2 days a week, just doing potholes through our community. We have a bunch of them that have shown up in this year with all the rain and the freeze and thaw. It's a bad year. I got 2 days this week that somebody will be out patching, and we won't get them all this week. And part of it is we're going back and patching we're, like I said, we're using cold mix now. And we're going and repatching things that we patched, last year. There was a divot there, water has gotten in, it's froze, popped it back out, and we're going and patching it again. Or if you can use the hot asphalt, it will reseal and you can get a better product. All of these things are in the budget, so.
Ted, it's kind of like that 6-way dozer blade, which is an awesome piece of equipment.
Mhm.
And you want to use it for shouldering and ditching.
Mhm.
And there's a few places we have to do that.
Yep.
But long-term, what's the use going to be of that thing?
Well, I can see it at leveling at the park or the trails back there. We're constantly seem to be doing something back on his trails. It could be back there doing that kind of stuff. It could be that, where we've got to make a new drainage swale here and there around the community.
I just can't help but think, we got all these sheds with all this stuff parked in it. Do we want to just keep accumulating stuff? That's my only caution about it.
Yeah, it's a tool, an asset one. Twice I've tried to go rent one and there's not one in the area. Well, I can have you one next week and it's going to be, or 2 weeks from now, and it's coming out of Minneapolis.
No, but it's the kind of thing that if we had a project like that, you could hire one of the excavators around to go do it. So it's, do we want to be all self-contained or do we want to reach out at certain deals?
Are these, they're standard units for, be it a John Deere, a Bobcat, whatever, so even if you found 3-4 years, you're not using it, or you use it a lot and then you're not gonna use it, you should be able to get the majority of your investment back if you sold it. I would think if it's a standard for any.
Yeah, it's just operating, whether it's Bobcat or Kubota or it's John Deere, they have a pretty standard attachment plate for all of them. That used to be not the case, but that is the way the industry is. And either they're low flow or high flow. Pretty much everything we're using, whether it's our snow blower or the compactor or whatever, is all high flow now.
Personally, and I've been harping on this for the last 2 years, is shouldering. I mean, you and I talked about what's happened on West Shore and Johnny and Robert. The plow driver in the wintertime drops that wing and puts it at an angle and shoots all the shouldering material up and it's gone. And then we need, and I'm assuming that's where you want this 6-way blade to put some of that back, and then we've got to re-shoulder. One thing, you need to get that plow driver to quit angling his plow and, losing all your shouldering. But there's roads all over the city that I see that, you've got an inch or two drop off the bituminous that, they're just busting up the edges of the roads because there's no shouldering. So I'm all in favor of all this shouldering, and, even if it's going to cost us some money to get the right equipment to do it, I think in the long run, we're into a maintenance program now on our roads, and the shouldering is a big part of it, and you need the right equipment. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your, I'll just say I'm very pleased to see, what you came up with to present to the city council. I think it's pretty reasonable. You're trying to make cuts where you can to reallocate to other parts of the budget that need it. And I'd say you've done a pretty good job. You had to add to crack filling, and striping, but you're using other areas where you're reducing and doing your best. So
Yeah,
that's my 2 cents worth.
It's like the crack filling. We got this price a few weeks back, and I haven't had a chance to get it to the group yet. Now I've got it to you. He notified me last week that I need to tell him yes or no as soon as I can. Price is going up 4 cents a pound. So the price will be changing here very soon. In fact, that was while I had council here, and if you guys say go ahead with the crack ceiling, I'm going to ask the council if I can at least tell this gentleman that I can go forward with it, because I don't need a price increase.
Well, I make a motion, we send this to the council.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Council, may I ask if I permission to at least tell the gentleman on the crack ceiling, the 72,000
On the crack ceiling.
on the crack ceiling?
And your budget for crack ceiling was half of that?
I had 40 in there. I asked for another 32 for a total of 72,000. And that gives us about a third of the community crack sealed this year.
Not chip sealed.
This is the crack ceiling. This is the mastic where they put the leveling and filling of those bigger cracks. So,
And half of it peels out and goes in the.
well,
ditch.
this is a different product than we've used before. This is mastic. The other
Seems
one
like
was a
It seems
tar
like a
subsidy.
big jump in that budget for it. Are you doing that many more roads? Or is there that much more need for it?
There's,
or-
the cracks have gotten bigger and deeper. You can't do what we were doing before on those bigger cracks. You cannot do that anymore. You have to go to this product.
Well,
or
I'm
oil
all
and
for
chip.
maintenance, so I guess you want us to make a motion for that?
If I could get permission, at least I could, you can make a formal action at the council, but as long as the consensus of the council was,
Okay. Because
oh, if you
is this
can.
designed to do a motion chart to do that? Okay. Well, does anybody else have any input on that?
I think if we can get it cheaper, I think yes, we move forward. We can move cost up.
Dave, any comment?
My street, and we got two bad.
I didn't, was that Aaron? I didn't hear Aaron's talk.
Thank you, Dave. I say yes, move forward, because I'm looking at my own street, and we've had two really nasty winters in a row on our streets, and my street, the cracks are getting bigger, wider, and they're going all the way across. I want to see the crack sealing done.
This new product, is that tried, proven, and
Yes,
everything where the old one punched out? Is this gonna do that too, or not?
they're using, just an example, they're using it in airports, which is very touchy. You know how landing a plane on the airport. The state of Minnesota is using this. Counties all over the state are using this. Other cities are using it. Townships are using it. We actually have an example that was used by one of the townships. Well, on the other end of Tom's neighborhood, the far end of West Shore Drive is actually an ideal township. And last year there was some that were probably 3-4 inches wide at least and 3-4 inches deep. And I don't know who they had come and do it. I couldn't get the name of who they did it for them. But he came in and they did the mastic, and it held up. The snowplows didn't pull it out. It held up really well this past year.
Mr.
I
Shrub,
think
what's your,
Aaron-
yeah, go ahead.
I think Aaron's right. You know, if you just look back at the costs that we're talking about with roads, we really need to make sure that they don't get worse because of the huge investment we have in them. So I think it's time to try this and get rolling on it. So I'd vote, I'll make a motion. We'd go ahead with it.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, Shar, huh?
Can I just clarify something in the motion? Is your motion just to move forward with the crack filling, and then the rest of this will be presented at next week's council meeting?
Yes,
The crack filling, yeah,
yes. Thank you, Tom.
okay.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dave Schrupp,
Yes,
Dave Nevin,
Yes.
Aaron Herzog.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen. I greatly appreciate that. Gentlemen, what I have, I was just given this before the meeting.
John is here if you want him to talk about it.
John, can you talk about this vacation thing again?
Good afternoon. You guys have already spoken or talked about the Varley road right away that they want vacated. And it's one of those that go down to the lake out on off of Whitefish. They have come and with a new, we can see it here, a new proposal, because they, from all indications, that was going to be denied. So prior to it actually getting denied at the council level, they have asked that instead of vacating this entire right-of-way here, they would like to move it over to the, it would be to the east along the property line, so that then they have one contiguous lot and they don't have a space in the middle. And I think what our city attorney said is we don't need to go through and re-notice this to everyone and let everybody know. But I think we've talked about it as staff, and it may be a good idea, rather than bring this to the city council for a change, that it needs to be re-noticed out to all the neighbors so they understand what's
And
happening.
it's also got to go before Park and Rec
Correct,
and here.
correct.
Good.
And we'd like, I think we're looking for a recommendation that it go back and start over again.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second it. It's on, I'll second it with the provision. Once again, I'm going to clarify. It's going to go to Park and Rec.
Go to Park and Rec. You guys can make a
It's gonna come
decision
here.
on it, you know, and make a recommendation now,
Second it.
but it should go back to Park and Rec for theirs, and then the re-noticing to everyone in the area, because they've all been noticed that it's actually going to be vacated. And I think they need to know that it's going to be moved, especially the people right next door where they're, we sent something off to them. We had a difficult time finding out who those people were, just because in the county system, it just says undivided interest. And it's 4 siblings that we had to get in touch with the county and get their information, and Shar sent them some, but we haven't heard back.
Some woman called me.
Okay.
On my telephone number. I don't know how, you know, what the heck. And she did call me and spoke to me about the original proposal.
Yes.
And I just recommended that she come come and address the city council.
Yes. So this is to move it over this time. So
John, I had a question. Am I right? This is the property that the gentleman across the street says he uses this right away to walk down to the beach and enjoy it. And it's right in front of his property currently where it is. So if we moved it, there might be some interest from him to say, whoops, I don't want it moved. In other words, we might have some people that wouldn't want to have this change.
yes, that is correct. If anybody has gone out there and looked at this, the existing right of way that's down there is somewhat cleared. There's a path down there because I actually used it to haul rock in there this last winter to riprap along the shore. If this gets moved over, it's completely undeveloped. There's no trees that have been cut. The shoreline is, and the hill, the bluff that's there is completely vegetated. So it would change significantly for the people that actually use this now. They wouldn't have access down there. One other thing as you go through this process, and it's my recommendation as you proceed forward on these, when people come in to move these things over, we've talked about how do they even know that they're there? How do people even know where they're at and what they can access? It would be my recommendation as staff that in the future, any of these that you get in that they ask to move, that they be marked. And you be very specific that it be a 3-inch metal pipe that sticks up 36 inches or 24 inches above the ground, and it's painted a specific color so that in the future, people can identify where these accesses are. And if they are somewhat developed, if someone has made a path in there, then people can know exactly where to go and to stay off the neighbors' properties. So just keep that in mind as we proceed forward on, I think we're going to be getting more of these because of the changes to the ordinance that allow people to apply to have them vacated. And this will be the 3rd one now that gets moved. And people need to know where these at, because if they don't get moved, the only thing that people have to look at is the old original plat. And now all of a sudden it's been moved over and it's not the right of way, it's not public land, and they've still got people walking through their yards to get down to the lake. And that has happened. So, anything else, Ted?
Go ahead.
No, I would concur with him that somehow if we, rather than the cost of marking them or our costs, and as these things come to be and we just put it in as part of the overall, matter of fact, if you're gonna do this, okay, then you gotta mark it.
Yeah.
Saves us
I think
$1.
that would go without saying. My question, and I'm not sure if it's to John or to TJ, but if this moves and it's an undeveloped parcel, and I don't remember if this is planning and zoning for your own parcel, you can clear a path down so wide, or whether it was on public property up there.
There is,
Didn't we deal with that, where some of these people wanted to have, just a path down to the lake, and so they could clear, I don't know, like 3 or 4 feet to make a pathway?
the way the ordinance is now is there's no development of these if it's not already done.
Okay, so they just have to weave around trees and go down?
Yes.
Okay.
What's there is there, and it stays that way.
Unless you guys want to do that also, I mean, but that's
Hey,
at city
John?
cost. Yes.
John, maybe I could just ask here, from what you described, the existing right-of-way has been maintained and cleared, and the resident that wanted to use it could use it. And now you're saying the other side sounds like it's far from it. Should we make it part of the agreement that they've got to clear a little bit so that the neighbors can use it like it was used before?
I am certainly, you guys can put whatever you want in any kind of resolution that you put at the council level. And that is an option to, no wider than 3-foot path. That way 4-wheelers aren't going down there, and, it's not a road, but it is a possibility.
John, when this comes before Park and Rec, which it will again, would it be advisable for Park and Rec to put this provision in what is forwarded to, then it'll eventually come here to Public Works?
Like I said, you guys can talk about this right now and you can make a recommendation, but having something in there saying this can't go to council until it goes back to Park and Rec, because they need to have input on it. And yes, you can put in your recommendation, you can say you want it marked, you can say that you want, and I don't know if it's on us to tell the property owner that they have to make a path, or is that something that Park and Rec or Public Works is responsible for? It is going to be city property, and maybe you want someone who has a vested interest on how developed it's going to be, the Parks Department or Public Works, to go out there and cut the path. So it is no more than 3 feet wide. So someone can't be going down there with a 4-wheeler or trying to get in there with a pickup truck or something like that.
I'm not sure did I make a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
Okay, because I think, and maybe the commission disagrees. My thought is it should start over. You've got a new application. I think you should renotice so the property owners up there, because they came in front of the Public Works Commission to say their piece. So rather than us making a motion now that as long as you send it there, I think it ought to just start over, because they may want to appear before us, and then we get exactly what they're proposing. And, you can always tell them that, maybe they ought to be thinking about including that they would be willing to, do the markings and provide a 3-foot wide path.
And I would rescind my motion. And I would make a motion that this starts where it should, with Park and Rec. Start from as Tom suggested, start from step 1.
That's what the motion is.
That's what the
I would
motion
send it
is.
out, yeah, and that's what my motion, I would like to see my motion and clarify it, that this,
Tom made the motion and you seconded it.
okay,
That this
To
should
I
be,
thought I
start
made a
over.
motion. All right,
Yeah.
we'll start over.
And it's
And
to
mine-
start the
mine says-
process from the beginning,
Yep.
so that it goes to Park and Rec, and then it'll come here, and then both the recommendations go to the city council.
I can't remember, Charlie, senior moment here.
that's why I'm here.
There's one more item that I think I remember is that they put riprap along the shoreline
Yes.
all the way
Correct.
across, and then they removed it where the old trail was.
That's correct.
So now are they gonna take the riprap from where they put it, where the new trail would be, and move it back where the old, or the existing trail is?
I would think where it is, if it's where they're planning on moving it to, it will stay. Because it'd be too disruptive to remove it. And then if it does get moved over to where it is, then they'll go back and riprap again where they removed it. I mean,
Maybe
you,
just
when
sorta
you
hint
do a
to 'em
move,
that, you know, tell us that you're gonna leave the riprap where it is, and if they wanna riprap the section now that becomes their property.
and again, that's a recommendation. When you go through there, you recommend to the city council that they approve it with these things, that
Okay.
the riprap stays where it's at, that they mark the right of way from the beginning all the way to the top of the bluff, so people know where it's at. And any other, that a trail goes in or whatever that is. Be very specific when you make those recommendations so that everybody understands what you're
I'm just thinking that riprap might make it difficult for someone to walk into the water. Like they said, they go swimming there, and you
Yeah.
can break a leg walking through riprap to get to the water. Right now, there's no riprap where they walk.
Sure. I mean, I would say though, you guys should go out and look at it. Go there, walk down, look at it. Is it a location where people should be going up and down the bluff without a stairway there? Because it's pretty sketchy and someone could get hurt. And then who's liable?
The riprap that was there is not really on the shore, out in the water, on the shoreline. This riprap was more on the bluff to hold the bluff in place. So when we're talking riprap, it's not where we think it's down on the water's edge and the waves are breaking on it. This is a nice sand beach down there. It's pretty nice.
What is the address?
What is it? Char's looking.
11393, I want to say.
There's a sign. up there.
11393. You'll see a nice wooden sign on the other side of the road that says Hillcrest Beach
That
with
says
a
Hillcrest Beach.
pointing towards it.
Is it on the east or the west side of the?
If you're headed out to the end of the point, it's
Yeah.
on your left, on the lakeside, on Whitefish.
If you go down Hilltop and take a right, of course, on Whitefish Avenue, it's about half a mile.
You're almost out to Camp Knutson, aren't you?
It's just this side of Camp Knutson, I'd say a half a mile.
Right. But the question is, if you're looking south at the property, is the proposed new right of way on the right side of that land or the left side?
It'll be on the left.
Left, far left.
Thank you.
The property is identified with stakes.
Okay.
This will be in your council packet too, Dave.
Okay.
when these properties were all laid out and stuff like that, and they put in these right-of-ways, they were there for a specific reason. Obviously, I wasn't there when it was done, but now people taking by these lots, knowing that they're there, obviously. So did they take them by them with the idea that they're going to take and vacate all of them in town? I mean, is that where we're going with all these right-of-ways?
We've had people that have told us that they're going to get the property, one way or another, they're going to get the property. And all we can say is a city council and the citizens, we have to say no.
Well, I figure I got my answer.
Any other questions for me? All right,
Thank you, John.
thanks.
Restate your motion, would you please? Bashar?
Now I'm having a senior moment for Shar to tell me what I said.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to put this together better than it sounds now, but to take the application back to Park Commission and Public Works Commission and to renotice all of the affected property owners within 350 feet.
basically the process starts over again with re-notifying and going through the process.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing else.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And I will look for a motion to adjourn the council meeting.
Second.
All in favor, you got a roll call?
Dave Schrupp,
Yes.
Aaron Herzog,
Yes.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dave Nevin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.